This is the Mountaineer Moment, your source for all things West Virginia football and basketball. From pregame to postgame coverage and breaking news, we've got you covered. Let's go. All right, welcome into the Mountaineer Moment, and the question for today's episode is it time already to panic in Morgantown following their Week 2 loss to the Ohio Bobcats? Extremely disappointing loss on the road, 17-10. Mountaineer offense couldn't do a thing. You can check out the episode before this one on those concerns. There's going to be a little bit of talk on that in this episode, but it's just focused on this one, on Mountaineer Moment here. Whether you're watching or listening, is it time to panic? It's September 7th, right? It's a day after Week 2 and their loss, and it was deeper than the fact that they lost to Ohio, who, by the way, is a decent team, who won the MAC last year, who has a really good quarterback and a good running back, but it's the manner in which they lost. Because their offense, that was some of the worst offense. I mean, I followed the Mountaineers many years, and that was some of the worst offense I've seen out of them. Don't know how it measures up, historically over the last 20 years or whatever, but it wasn't pretty. It was not pretty. So is it time to panic in Morgantown? This is Mountaineer Moment, another episode, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you're listening or watching. Be sure to subscribe. We got lots of, this is, like I said it on the last episode, but this episode is going to be our final discussion on Ohio, and we're going to look forward to the Backyard Brawl and Pit coming to town next week, which should still be a good atmosphere. But here we go. Some team stats for you, right? If you just look at the box score, if you don't take my word for it, just based on watching the game, the box score tells you a story that's ugly for the Mountaineers. Mountaineers 250 total yards of offense. Ohio had 429. Mountaineer time possession, they like to go fast, but as is the case, if you like to go fast and you get 3 and outs, you're giving that ball back to the other team quick. That's what the Mountaineers did all day long. 16 minutes and 40 seconds for Mountaineers on offense. 40-plus minutes for Ohio. They had the ball for 40-plus minutes in this one. Not a recipe for good things to happen. It's just not. It's just not. And so that's not a good sign. And several elements, I mean, you can, across the board, there's just not a lot of bright spots, not a lot of good things to talk about. Fred Perry might be the lone, signature kind of, he had himself a really good game. He had 10 total tackles, 2 tackles for loss, and a sack. He was all over the field. Darian Lewis had 9 tackles himself, but he got a couple PIs that hurt the Mountaineers early, and he did come up with an interception in the second half. Chase Wilson had 2 tackles for loss and a pick himself, 7 tackles. He had another decent game. Again, defense wasn't the issue, as we talked about in the last episode, but there were some moments where this defense struggled, especially in the first half, and they didn't give up a point in the second half, and you couldn't ask for more, right? Mountaineer offense and defense, kind of not so great in the first half. You tell your Mountaineer offense, all right, defense is going to shut out the Ohio Bobcats the whole second half. You think you can go out and win the game? I would have taken that. I would have said, yeah, I think we're going to go out and win the game. Mountaineers, all they did was put up 3 points in the second half, and I believe those 3 points came on the opening possession in the second half. Just couldn't do a thing offensively. The Mountaineer offensive line, we talked about this last episode, but the offensive line, based on Pro Football Focus's grade of the individual players, was just bad. This is a big question mark coming into Week 2. How are they going to perform, against a stiffer competition in the Ohio Bobcats? How are they going to do? And the performance they put forth was not pretty. Nick Cray, 65.4 grade by PFF. Tykeus Crawford, 61.7. Landon Livingston, 67.6, which is the highest, which is not good. Walter Youngbear, 58.2. Chemo, 57.3 to round out the Mountaineer starters on the O-line. And the reason, again, it's the first loss of the season. It's to Ohio, who won their conference last year. But the reason we're even entertaining the idea of, should we start to panic is one, rooted in this offensive line and their struggles that they had. Because with all due respect to Ohio, Mountaineers are going to play against better front sevens over the course of the rest of the season. Maybe every team throughout the course of this rest of the season, right? Starting with the backyard brawl next week, then you get into Big 12 conference play, and you're going to play against some dudes. Like you're going to play against some dudes that are going to give you fits on the offensive line, and for them to struggle this much against Ohio. Now I get almost, there's 81 new players on this team, and I don't want to use that as an excuse or whatever, but I get that they're still working on figuring things out. But you got to figure it out now. You have to figure it out now. And are they even capable of more? Are they capable of better? One of the questions I've had several times on this very podcast, in its very brief history, I've said several times that what is this offensive line's ceiling? And not only that, how quickly are they going to get there? I sure hope that week 2 was not this Mountaineer offensive line ceiling, because if it was the Mountaineer offensive line ceiling, we are in for a very long season. Very long season. Is it time to panic? Well, I just said it, right? If the Mountaineers offensive line does this every week in, week out, then yes. But if we want to try and say, all right, let's regroup, let's back to the drawing board, let's see what we can do, let's improve, let's not panic yet, and let's see what this offensive line is going to do. The remaining 2 things I want to talk about are on the same side of the ball. All right, Jahiem White goes down, carted off the field in the first half, leg injury. Not going to speculate, doesn't look great. The depth chart behind him has been a question all throughout camp and preseason and week 1 and 2. And if White is truly going to be sidelined for a week or the whole season, who's stepping up? Clay Ash was the guy at running back, which caused some head scratchers all over Twitter. He was the guy to back up Jahiem and to come in when he was injured. He only got 4 carries because Mountaineers just couldn't move the ball running, so they tried through the air and didn't have success there either. But Clay Ash was the primary backup. Mountaineers also have Sincere Bowers and Dior Hubbard. Sincere only got 1 carry. Dior hasn't had a carry yet. Ty Edwards hasn't had a carry yet, who's eligible and able to play. And those guys are figuring to get in on this situation, so the coaching staff has to figure out right now what this running back situation is going to look like with or without Jahiem White. And these guys bring different things to the table. Ty Edwards is a big, huge physical back. Put him in situations where he can be successful. Right? Clay Ash, many people on Twitter were saying he has a spot on this team, but being the feature back isn't that spot. Find him places to be successful. Dior Hubbard and Sincere Bowers, like unique skill sets, like put them in situations to be successful, right? If it's going to be running back by committee, then put these guys in places where they can thrive. And if there's going to be one true backup running back and like that, one true guy filling in for Jahiem, I don't know that it should be Clay Ash. Just say that. I don't know that it should be Clay Ash. So that situation needs to get resolved. And if it doesn't, you guessed it, there's cause for concern and potential panic in Morgantown. Thirdly, talked about it last episode, the quarterback situation. Easy to root for Nicco. Just is. Waited his turn. Here he is. Just picked up his first loss as a starter for the Mountaineers, and it, trust me, wasn't all on him. We've gone this long into the episode without tossing blame toward him. But Nicco struggled in week 2. He struggled, in the pocket that was compromised often, having to scramble and take some sacks, and struggled with, even finding receivers who struggled to get open, right? There's a reason for that, too. He had a couple nice deep balls in this game, but perhaps the number one concern related to Nicco is that he's not as strong of a runner as these other quarterbacks on the roster. And when Jahiem goes down, you need a running threat at quarterback. And Nicco, while he can get you some yardage, he's not necessarily the guy when plays break down. He's not necessarily a guy that's, all right, QB design, run, let's go. he's going to take it to the house from 50. You know what I mean? He's just not that. Mountaineers have some guys on the offense in the quarterback position that could potentially be that. So is the solution to go to another quarterback because you need that running threat? Because Nicco's not necessarily fit for this offense, right? I mean, it's crazy to even be thinking like this or talking like this, and I'm not the only one talking like this, because after week 1, it was like, man, Nicco looked good. And here we are saying, should Nicco be the starter? I mean, it only took a half of football against Ohio for people to be calling for Jalen Henderson. And I'm not sitting here saying they were wrong. And I'm not, again, Nicco's not the guy he's not the only one to blame. But, man, it was ugly. And, man, the Mountaineers couldn't capitalize on 3 picks from Parker Navarro in the second half. So not only you were down 10 at half against Ohio on the road, you shut them out in the second half, and you picked up 3 interceptions, and the most you could get in the second half was 3 points on, the opening drive. 3 turnovers that gave you great field position. You couldn't do a thing. That's not good. And so, well, it might not be time to panic. There's a lot of things to work on, and I think that's why I led with number 1, the offensive line. That's not good. That is not good. Those PFF grades are not good. And if you don't resolve that in a hurry, you're going to be in for a long season. So we had a question. Again, how's this team going to fare against a little bit stiffer competition? And we're gonna take a tick up in competition again with the backyard brawl, and then it's Power 4 opponents the rest of the way in the Big 12. And on one side, you got answers. You saw how the offensive line performed. You saw things, but there were things you didn't want to see. You have answers now that you didn't want to have. You vote for different answers, but here we are. And I'm not one to say it's time to panic, right? Through 2 weeks, you haven't even gotten to conference play, hit the panic button, but the panic button's on the table. It's there. It's right. You know what I mean? It's here. And things got to get fixed in a hurry. And I'm just kind of, I'm glad that we know what needs to be fixed. Because there's a lot. You can almost say everything. But, if you can't run the football for Rich Rod, you can't make a hole. You get 78 yards against a MAC school. You got to fix that. So, we have answers. We just don't like the answers. And the question is, now, do you bounce back or do you continue to struggle? So, is it panic time in Morgantown with the backyard brawl on the horizon? We'll see what kind of performance they get. Again, we'll have more answers after week 3. We'll have more answers after week 4. We'll have more, every week we're going to have more answers. But if things stay status quo as far as what the product they're putting out on the field, you can bet you need to be panicking. So we'll see what happens in the backyard brawl. Again, this is Mountaineer Moment, breaking down the week 2 loss to Ohio on the road for the Mountaineers. Mountaineers are back home Saturday to host Pitt in the backyard brawl, so you can bet that we're going to have plenty of content leading up to that game coming up on Saturday. So whatever platform you're on, subscribe and follow along with us on the countdown to kickoff, and then we'll be sure to have some post-game thoughts as well for you on the backyard brawl. We will see you next time on Mountaineer Moment. Let's go Mountaineers.